So tell me a time. No, I am going to start with a question.
All
So
right.
tell me about a time when you felt humiliated in your life. We're going in the deep end of the pool.
Okay.
Right off the bat.
Yeah.
Because full disclosure, where we're going, where we're headed, this episode is Humbled Heart. So we're talking about humility, all the things.
Yeah, you know what's weird? For some reason, the first thing that came to my mind is not what you might think. Like, it wasn't like a time I was getting picked on or something. Thankfully, I dodged a lot of the bullying stuff. I definitely do remember.
Yeah, because you're a cool kid.
No. I was friends with the cool kids. I wouldn't say I was a cool kid, but I got along with the cool kids for the most part. And also, I just, like, if I didn't think you were cool, then I didn't really care what you thought. You know what I mean?
The epitome of being a cool kid, though.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be cool to be cool. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, cool, I guess, is totally subjective.
Yeah.
But anyway, it like the first thing that came to my mind is not necessarily like getting picked on or something. The first thing that came to my mind for some reason is we were on Long Island. We were me and my brother and some of our friends were at a basketball court. Like there was like a basketball court in the middle of the neighborhood that the community could use. And they might have had like tennis courts and stuff, like a rec area. I don't know. It was cold, so nobody was there. And some other kids showed up at some point. And this other kid was being just a total jerk. And I don't remember. I was so young. I don't remember exactly what happened. But basically, he was like, running his mouth and he was causing problems. And so at one point, I think we outnumbered them. So there wasn't actually going to be like a scrap, if you will. But at one point, they went to leave and he was on a bike. And when you leave the basketball court, there was like probably 5 or 6 steps down to the sidewalk. So you come off the court, you leave the fence, you go down the steps, and then you're on the sidewalk, street level. And as he was about to start going down the steps on his bike, I remember thinking very clearly in my head, almost like focusing on him and being like, I hope he falls right now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I've never heard this story.
Yeah. And he, like, the next second, like, slipped. There must have been ice on the steps. The bike went sliding out from under him. He came down on his face onto the railing and then onto the ground, got up, and his whole face was covered in blood.
Oh no.
And
my God.
It was crazy. It just took me back. I was like, because of course I felt in some weird way responsible. But, but not even, like, I knew I had a pretty good idea that I didn't actually cause him to fall, but the fact that I had wished for it, like, so hard. And then seeing the result and being like, oh my gosh, what I wished for was terrible. And I wish that didn't happen.
Oh my gosh.
And that feeling of like wishing for something and then seeing it happen and regretting it, I felt... Yeah, for some reason, that was the first thing that came to mind when you asked me. Maybe that's not really humiliation in the traditional sense, but...
No, but I think it does make sense. Like, humbled. Like, yeah.
I was just like, dude, you shouldn't be wishing for stuff like that. Like, it just was one of those. I was like, maybe our thoughts are way more powerful than we think they are, and you need to check yourself, bro. Like, that was not cool. It's kind of what I was thinking in my head.
Interesting.
Yeah. What about you?
I feel like I have a much more maybe traditional experience of humiliation in my childhood, in that the first thing that popped in my head was being picked last on a PE team. Basically every time, because as we know, I mean, now I can look back on it and be like, yeah, I don't have any athletic skill, and it's pretty apparent in the way that I carry myself, if I'm being honest. I'm not athletically built, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty clumsy. If you spent any time around me, you would know that. You know what I mean? So my classmates were probably like, yeah, we don't need her on our team, Well,
it's good you can laugh now, but I'm sure at the time,
it was the worst.
Would be
it was the worst because everyone's picking the teams.
Yeah.
And it's not just like a secret thing behind closed doors that you're going to be picked last. Like it's right in front of your face.
They literally read the names aloud and then you walk over and join the group.
Like everyone has been chosen. And then it's that feeling of like they almost forgot about you. I'm laughing about it now, but like it's so sad. Like, oh, right, Sarah, I guess you can be on our team, you know? That's a very humbling, kind of humiliating feeling for sure. But
I don't want to brush past it because that is so real. But I also want to let you know I do also relate to that. Like, because I was not athletic. I was not like obviously athletic.
Yeah.
And I often got picked last for stuff. And it's such a terrible feeling, isn't it? To just, like, even if sports isn't really your thing and you don't even really care, just to be picked last in anything, to be literally valued the least in a group of people is not a good feeling.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think the truth is that like childhood kind of is ripe for a lot of those types of situations. Because I think we're emotional beings, and when we're kids, we don't really have the skills to regulate ourselves, you know, super well, and to navigate that, and to even know what, like, to be able to even name that, like, I was humiliated in PE class today, like, to even be able to say that, is a hard thing. But like, I think humility in general, as I've grown older, maybe all of the emotions, right, as I've gotten older, is like, just realizing it's a little bit more complicated than just black and white of how I thought it was when I was a kid, if that makes sense. And that not all feelings of humiliation or experiences of that are actually automatically bad for us. You know?
Totally, yeah.
Because sometimes it's just an experience that kind of like shows us something new or what's the word I'm looking for? Reveals something about us. That feeling just kind of brought to the surface, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which reminds me of the definition that I went to ChatGPT in full disclosure earlier for. I told you yesterday that ChatGPT is becoming my best friend. I don't mean that in a weird way. I mean that like I'm going to ChatGPT a lot these days because it's been very, very helpful. But in like preparation for this podcast, I went to ChatGPT and asked, what's the definition of humble?
Yeah.
And it gave that it comes from the Latin word humilis. Is that how you say that? Humilis?
Maybe.
Which means low or grounded. And another way of thinking about it is humility involves seeing yourself clearly without exaggerating your abilities or diminishing your worth.
Seeing yourself as you really are. Not feeling the need to boost your own, you know, how you're perceived, but also not like poo-pooing yourself either.
Right.
Just being like, well, this is who I am.
Like seeing yourself as you really are. When I think about the idea of being low or grounded, right? That definition, it's like being grounded in reality, but not allowing those things to destroy your self-esteem, which is in the past, how I would have kind of seen being humble. What that means is to be kind of like you're the worst to yourself. You know what I mean? Like, to kind of be self-disparaging and
Yeah, this is like a super classic thing. Well, first of all, just about the ChatGPT thing, you know who would be really pissed about that?
Oh no,
is
who?
Mr. Merriam-Webster, because he's been giving out definitions to words pretty much for free online.
Is it a Mr. Merriam-Webster? Merriam sounds like a...
Oh, no, Merriam. I think it's two people, Merriam and Webster. I'm not sure.
Okay.
We can ask ChatGPT.
ChatGPT.
But
ChatGPT is getting its definitions from Merriam-Webster.
No,
so.
I'm just saying.
I get it.
But yeah, it is interesting because what were we just talking about?
How being humble means to be low or grounded, seeing yourself clearly.
I love that idea that it's not always bad. I think that's really, I mean, sometimes it's just, you get humiliated and it's just flat out humiliating. You fall on your face or you put your foot in your mouth or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and those are real, or you get picked last or something.
Right.
But I love that perspective that some humiliation is not bad. In fact, if something grounds you, like sometimes we need to be grounded or lowered,
Humbled.
Humbled. Yeah, there you go. Humbled. That's really interesting. And it gives me hope to like want to find the positive in it, to believe that there is a positive or there can be a positive in it,
Yeah.
I think I had mentioned to you, we were just on this retreat last week. And I've been in sort of a low key, like vocational crisis, just trying to figure out what I really wanted, what am I good at? Just asking myself, like, what am I really good at? Like, okay, we can all find a job, we can all find something to do, but like, is there something I was put here to do? And I really do feel like, living in an artist town like Nashville, it is kind of a universal thing. Probably a lot of us feel, but also I'm surrounded by people who it really feels like they've picked their thing. So on this retreat, that was specifically for like artists and creatives, I knew it was going to come up 1,000 times. People are going to ask, so like, what do you do? What's your artistic thing?
Yeah.
But for me, I just didn't have a good answer. And not that I was humiliated by that. And of course, everybody was super nice. But every time somebody asked me, it could have made me spiral deeper into like, oh gosh, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But I really tried, and not super successfully, but I really tried to instead let it, just encourage me. Like, it's great to be around all these people who are so convicted about what they do and know what they do. And I really want to uncover that. So when somebody asks me, I'm not going to get frustrated and at myself and be like, I wish I had a better answer for this. I'm going to try to just be like, I'm still kind of figuring it out. But it was a humbling thing,
right,
to have to keep on saying, I'm not 100% sure,
Well, and it goes back to the definition of humility is seeing yourself clearly.
Right.
It was one of those experiences where you got to see yourself clearly. And sometimes that's not easy.
Right. Right. Totally.
Sometimes that's not easy.
Totally. And I honestly, I could, earlier you said humility involves seeing yourself clearly without exaggerating your abilities or diminishing your worth. And it would have been so easy to do one of those two things. To be like, oh, I don't really do anything, or I'm just kind of here. I'm just kind of here on the side. I'm just here for fun, or to be like, oh, I do so much. I mean, I'm this, I'm that, because you could start naming stuff. Oh, I'm a musician. It's like, what does that mean? Like, I could start, I'm a writer, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a speaker, I could start naming stuff, but like for what purpose? What I really wanted to, what I felt people were really asking is not just like, what's your resume? Yeah. I felt like people were really asking like, hey, what's like the thing that you tap into to share what's inside of you with the world? And there's no shame in being like, I'm still kind of working on cracking that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's pretty honest. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, Yeah,
I hope so.
I think one of the things that I've been thinking about in terms of humility for myself is that for a lot of, I would say, early stages of my career as a creative, as an artist, like I embodied a false sense of humility because I always thought that being humble automatically meant to be small. And I do think that there is a bit of it in that. To be humble is to be, especially in the Christian sense, it's like more of you, God, less of me. That is a good thing to embody, right? But I think I took it to an extreme where it became like, I want to be small and hidden so that essentially no one could ever really uncover the real me and then reject the real me. So it was almost like this protection. I'm going to be humble. I'm going to be small. Anytime someone says, I love your voice, I love your music, it's, oh, no, it's not me. It's not me. It's like defer, put it on something else, someone else, put it on God, whatever. Like, right. In effort to protect myself from what? I don't know, from rejection, I think, ultimately, from someone being able to, if I own my creativity, if I own that this is my artistic expression or whatever, and if they then judge it, then that's going to hurt me. You know what I mean? Which is just not humility. It's actually pride when you think about it in that way, which is ironic and kind of a twisted way of thinking about of thinking about being humble, at least to me. It's something that I'm trying to wrestle with and see clearly for myself, that's something that I'm even continuing to, like, wanting to be humble from a good place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not from a self-disparaging place, like I keep saying, but like from truly like a place of clarity.
Yeah. You know? That makes total sense to me, because, you know, it's probably not operating in full health to badly want the spotlight. And you've never really been that kind of person. But it's also not really operating in full health to be terrified of the spotlight.
Right.
Because that means that other people might see you and observe something and maybe not like something and critique something.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, and I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with. That's not just you, of course, but it's an interesting, like I think you said, to try to be humble for the right reason.
Yeah.
You know, to be like you said earlier, God, you know, that I might decrease and you might increase kind of thing. Like, you know, you don't want to make, especially like, so in what you do, like Christian sort of focused music.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't want the whole thing to be all about you. You are trying to point people to something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
But, you know, in order for you to point people anywhere, they do have to see you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's a healthy balance somewhere in the middle there.
Right.
That's hard to strike.
Which is what reminds me of the next part of what I want to talk about, which is kind of related to Humbled Heart, the song in general, which is this idea that like being a Christian musician or being someone who is in what I consider ministry, right, for work, mixed in with this entertainment side, there is a really fine line between what does it mean to be humble and what am I doing this for and what is my focus. And I think that was the original, I've never really talked about this publicly, like my original desire to write this song, Humbled Heart, came from a place of wanting to fight for humility in my own life as an artist and feeling that tension and wanting to write a song to remind me to put myself in front of the cross and that I am, like, it's not about me. It's about glorifying God and it's about bringing his name glory and that he would be known. And I think one of the interesting things that led to this song was at the time I was listening to this podcast called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. Have you listened to that podcast?
Not entirely, but yeah, I know the story.
It's really good. For those who don't know what it's about though, it's basically about this mega pastor that, and kind of who abused a lot of people on his staff emotionally, physically. And it's the story of this mega church, the rise and fall of this mega church. And, it's actually a really awesome podcast. It's not incredibly disparaging. It's just reality, right?
Yeah.
But I was listening to that podcast and I was just getting more and more enraged. Honestly, I was just getting so angry about the fact that in church circles, it's so easy for people who get into these places of power to abuse it.
Yeah.
And I'm so angry about that.
Yeah.
Because I know people have been hurt by that and I've been hurt by that. And I'm, you know, and so I was sitting there like wrestling with this. It's like, why is this a thing? Why is this continually a thing that you hear the same story over and over again of like this pastor getting power and unchecked power and he's not held accountable and he destroys an entire whatever community, you know? And I just kept coming back to like, I'm capable of that actually. Like any one of us is capable of allowing power to corrupt us. You know what I mean? None of us is immune to that. So if I want to fight against that, the answer is humility. Like the answer to me is humbling myself and reminding myself I am a disciple, I'm a servant. I don't have all the answers. I don't know all the things. And I want to lay my life at the cross and lead from that place. I'm not trying to like again, I'm not trying to boost myself. I'm not trying to be like, I'm holy because I thought this thing. It was literally like, I want to save myself from turning into that. So this is the only way that I know how to do that. And that's where Humbled Heart came from. I didn't tell that story to the writers at the time.
That was going to be my question. Yeah.
No, I didn't really go into all of that because I felt like it would be kind of a killjoy, but that's just the truth of where my heart was when we wrote this song and kind of where it came from, you know?
Well, yeah, it does. I can see that the song comes from a place like that. I didn't know that, but it's like general enough that it's not so specifically about that.
Yeah.
As it is about as it is, like you said, a meditation on putting yourself in front of the cross and thinking about Christ's passion and thinking about redemption and responding in worship to what the story of our faith is. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
it's all wrapped up in that, which is cool.
Yeah.
So that was good writing, you know, for it to be able to hold multiple ways of thinking about it, you know?
Yeah.
Anything from the writing of that song that you remember that you want to share? I don't even know who you wrote it with.
This one was with Jeff Pardo and Ethan Hulse.
Oh, right.
Two newbies. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. Two legends.
The only real thing that I can, real memory that I have is writing the second verse. I think I remember we were tempted to write about the resurrection in that second verse. And I just kept feeling like I want to stay at the cross somehow. Like, I think that there is kind of a temptation sometimes when you're looking at suffering or in the face of something like the cross to want to talk about the victory side of it and to be like, yes, the cross, but the resurrection's coming. And I think that that's important. But for the purposes of this song, I just felt like I wanted it to stay there a little bit longer, I guess. So we ended up kind of retweaking it and bringing it back to continuing that metaphor kind of, you know, and kind of meditating on that.
Yeah.
And then the bridge of the song goes to, it's literally straight up, just be exalted, be glorified.
Right. And it was originally called Humble King, right?
Yeah.
And then you kind of felt like it was more about, like the song was more about the humbled heart of the person than about, well, not more about, but you know what I mean? Like kind of the focus, it was more about the humbled heart.
Yeah.
Rather than a reflection on the humble king.
In face of the cross and in facing that, right? And coming before that.
Yeah.
The response is humbled heart. So I just felt like that was the crux of the thing, you know, the crux of the whole song.
There's a line from the Catechism. Everyone is, I think, verse, or however they put it, paragraph 543 and 544. Everyone is called to enter the kingdom. The kingdom belongs to the poor and lowly, which means those who have accepted it with humble hearts. That's either what it says verbatim or it's something I wrote in my notes one time. But for some reason, it either says that verbatim or that's the gist of it, basically.
Can you say it again?
Yeah, everyone is called to enter the kingdom. The kingdom belongs to the poor and lowly, which means those who have accepted it with humble hearts.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you?
Well, you don't exactly earn an invitation to the kingdom. Something I want to give a shout out to Dr. Tim Gray from the Augustine Institute. We were with him last weekend.
Yeah.
At an amazing Valentine's Day party, by the way, that some dear friends of ours threw out in Boise, Idaho. And at this Valentine's Day party, which is really like just a celebration of love and marriage, Dr. Tim Gray from the Augustine Institute was there, and he gave a little fervorino about the beauty of marriage and the sacrament of marriage.
Yeah.
And he was just talking about how if you receive a gift or a blessing or whatever, He's like, if you feel entitled to it, then like if you feel like you earned it, then you tend to be possessive over it, and in a sense you're really not even grateful for it. And he said the way it works when we receive a gift or a blessing or something is like, first there's like the wonder, like in the ideal sense, it's like first there's the wonder in receiving something beautiful, and the wonder stemming from like, wow, like this is amazing. This is not something I earned or that I demand. Like this is not something I was entitled to. This is a gift. And he said, without the wonder, there can be no gratitude. And without the gratitude, there can be no joy. And I loved that. And when I read, the kingdom belongs to the poor and lowly, which means those who have accepted it with humble hearts, I think like the invitation that I would say at the very crux of my faith life is not necessarily like an intellectual deduction that like simply surely Catholicism must be true or something. It's more like the thing that sustains me and the thing that started me down this road was feeling an invitation to the table and being like, me? Why me kind of thing. And then, stepping up to the table and just realizing how gracious the host is and how bountiful the feast is. And not that everything is perfect, but like there's an awe and a wonder in an invitation. So I think like to accept the invitation to the kingdom with a humbled heart is to say, I am poor and lowly, like as in what I have couldn't afford this. You know what I mean? And so that's why I think sometimes some of the wealthiest people are the most humbled, because sometimes they realize, man, there isn't enough gold in the world to buy your way into heaven. The invitation, or even
into happiness,
or into happiness, right? Yeah, exactly, to buy yourself into heaven on earth.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just reading this note for the first time. It's buried in my notes from I don't know how many years ago, so I don't have a whole lot on it, but that was just a thought.
I love that. It reminds me of the earlier today I was reading some of the readings from the day, and one of them was from the Gospel of Mark, when it talks about the story of Jesus telling his disciples, like, the Son of Man will die. I'm going to die, essentially, and I'm going to raise, from the dead 3 days later. And they were like, what the heck is this guy talking about? Like, right. Literally, they're like so confused and don't know what he's saying. And then it talks about how they're journeying through Capernaum and through Galilee or whatever. And they were arguing. It doesn't give you context of what the argument was, but it just says they were arguing. This is why I love The Chosen, because it fills in some of those like context moments. You're like, what were they like? The disciples are just like a bunch of normal people that are like, we're just trying to follow you, Lord Messiah. Like we believe in you, but I don't know what the heck you're talking about half the time. They were just normal people trying to do the right thing. So they're fighting, essentially, that it comes to Jesus's knowledge that they're fighting about like, oh, I'm going to be first in the kingdom. I'm going to be first. I'm going to be the most important. And he's like, guys, you don't get it. You still don't get it. Like the first shall be last. And unless you come to me like this child, he like uses this child in this example of like, you should come to me like a child. And the kingdom of heaven is for basically children. You know what I mean? I'm paraphrasing now, but like to come humbled, essentially. And it's this real challenge of like, the first shall be last. Man, that is so hard. It's so hard to embody that in this culture, especially in this culture of look at me. Look at what I can do. Buy my product that I'm selling. Buy this song that I'm selling. Do you know what I mean? Like we commodify everything.
Yeah.
And then it, in turn, I think, at least for me, it's this challenge of like, how do I actually view myself? And am I viewing myself like I deserve this thing? I don't deserve it. You know what I'm saying? I don't deserve it.
And why do I need so much validation from the outside? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you see it in a social setting where, sometimes people are just very, very comfortable and not insecure, and other times insecurity ramps up in us, and we have to make a splash, or have to have some sort of social capital, or some sort of sense of status.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a Pope Francis quote that I have written down here, if that's all right.
Yeah, I love it.
He said, "If one has all the answers to all the questions, that is the proof that God is not with him.
Oof.
It means that he is a false prophet using religion for himself. The great leaders of the people of God, like Moses, have always left room for doubt. You must leave room for the Lord, not for our certainties. We must be humble." And that's
beautiful.
You can obviously deduce why we at some point wrote that quote down over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But it spoke really powerfully to me, because not just in the context of like doubt and faith, but also like how I was saying earlier, people asking me like, so what do you do? Like, what's your thing? What's the thing that God put you on this earth to share with the world? And
no pressure.
Yeah.
Have an answer.
Yeah. Which of course, nobody there was actually asking it like that. I was just kind of joking, but people were asking, of course. And so that makes me feel so much nicer, or makes me feel so much better to hear Pope Francis say, if one has all the answers to all the questions, it's proof that he's not leaving room for the Lord. And so that was just a small sigh of relief to me.
Yeah.
To just go, okay, so maybe that's the question I don't have the answer to right now. But like, hopefully what that means is I'm trying to leave room for the Lord.
Yeah.
And be humble, So
I
still got to figure
encouraging.
out
No, to me it's encouraging because I've never really thought about wrestling with faith or wrestling with doubts as being humble.
Yeah, you're right. It is kind of a blending of the two things. Yeah.
I've never really thought about that. Maybe that's to me, that's mind blowing right now. Like that is being humble. Actually, it's actually surrendering yourself to the mystery that is God and humbling yourself to recognize that you are not all knowing. We are not all knowing, and we never will be. And being okay with that is this, again, grounding, being aware of the reality of who we are, that we won't ever know all of the answers.
Yeah.
And that's really comforting to me, actually.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And of course, like there is room for doubt. That's the point. Like the point is not that if you ever struggle in your faith, that the simple answer is that you have a lack of humility. It's not quite that black and white, obviously.
Right.
But he did say in that quote, like, leave room for doubt.
Yeah.
So it's not that doubt makes you bad or, whatever, but it's almost like, yeah, you're right. It is a humbling thing to go like, I can't even believe something right. Like, what is that about? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And yeah, if one has all the answers to all the questions, that is the proof that God is not with him.
That's pretty strong language.
Well, you know how PF does.
No, but I'm saying it's pretty strong language right there. It's challenging, actually.
Yeah.
Because I've been there before where I thought that I had all the answers.
Yeah.
Maybe not all the answers, but where I was pretty certain on some things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. 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 I know. And Pope Francis does kind of have that Hispanic Hispanic
Fire.
grandparent. Like they'll say some
Energy.
stuff and you're like, whoa, papi, like easy, jeez. You know, I'm just trying.
That's true.
But yes, yeah, there is some really, really good stuff in that.
It's simultaneously comforting and a little bit challenging at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just how he goes. It's how he rolls.
Yeah.
Pope Francis. Got to pray for him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. True.
Yeah. Anyways, Humbled Heart.
Humbled Heart.
Some news with this song is that I'm releasing the acoustic version of it, which if people haven't heard it yet, it's only available on YouTube, and I'm releasing it to digital streaming platforms later this week.
When is that? End of this week?
March 7th. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Very
cool.
So
that's coming out, which is exciting.
Yeah.
And that will start the acoustic tracks from A New Reality coming out.
Nice.
Yeah.
How many of them are there going to be? Is that a secret?
Ooh, it's not a secret, but I don't know if
it's a mystery.
I'm not certain now.
There's a difference between a secret and a mystery.
Yeah. I'm not certain right now, but I'm just surrendering to the wonder that is releasing music. You know?
I love that. Yeah, that's great.
No, I think it's like 6 total. I don't know. I think there's like 6.
Okay, right on.
Could be wrong, maybe 5. But
they're coming out.
That is
something to look forward to.
Yeah. I'm also going to be doing, and you might help me with this, behind the scenes or maybe not behind the scenes. I'm going to be doing a series, a Lenten series in my newsletter around Humbled Heart, breaking open the different lyrics and using that as inspiration for this season of Lent, which is starting actually when this podcast release. It started today. It's Ash Wednesday.
Oh, very cool.
In the future.
In the future, right.
Happy Ash Wednesday.
Okay, very cool. Wow. Oh, I guess we didn't really talk about that. But you know what? This whole thing is, I think, very appropriate for that.
Yeah, actually.
You know, ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Remembering that you are dust, and to dust you shall return.
There it is.
That's it, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Woof, what an intense line.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought much about it.
Remember you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Yeah.
Yeah. Grounding. What could be more effective at bringing you low and grounding you than being like, you know, you're from the dirt and you'll go back to the dirt eventually.
Yeah, remembering your death, memento mori.
Yeah, which is a whole other conversation and a whole other podcast, but
it's true though.
I have really been into that concept lately of just I think in the context of the artist retreat and in the context of what do I want to do with my gifts or whatever, there is a humility and almost recognizing like I'm actually just a small part of a much larger thing. You know, like most of us 200 years from now will not be remembered outside of our family, maybe less than 200 years, you know? And there is something beautiful about remembering that. Just remembering it.
Yeah, because
you know, even
as
big of a big shot as you might become on Earth. Yeah. You know, like history kind of washes over and forgets about a lot of people. Yeah. You know, so not to like, I don't know, not to take that in some gross negative way and like let it cause you despair, but just again, humility.
No, I think it actually helps you to take yourself less seriously. Yeah. And the problems or the stresses of the day. I mean, we were talking about this earlier over dinner, like days can be so stressful. And when, at least for me, when I start to spiral and when things start to pile on and it feels like I am the center of the world. It feels like my problems are as heavy as the world, or my, you know, things that I have to accomplish are like super weighty. But honestly, when you just said that, it just reminded me like, man, don't take yourself so seriously. Like, seriously, you're not like holding the nuclear codes. Someone out there is, so maybe you should take yourself seriously. Right. But like, I'm not like choosing life or death for the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not in my power. Like, but that's what it feels like sometimes, like the pressure and the weight of work and life. And it's just like, dude, take a breath. Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Right. And like that doesn't mean that you don't work hard. That doesn't mean that you don't give yourself to everything. But there's got to be this like balance. Yeah. It's almost like the gift of humility is helping you to keep yourself in check.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think humility is good for us. I think everything God invites us to is ultimately for our good. Mm. So it makes sense that humility and grounding yourself would be good for you.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't feel good all the time.
Yeah.
So.
And on that note,
Humbled Heart, baby.
Humbled Heart.
Go check it out. Stream it wherever you stream.
Share it wherever you share. Yeah. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Peace.